Hello, everybody. Welcome to I Ain't Afraid of No Ghost. I'm here. My name is Alan, and I'm here with Dr. Anthony Mattis. He's an access facilitator, as many of you guys know, and he teaches this cool class called Talk to the Entities. And I want to ask you, Anthony, a little bit about entities, ghosts. Those are basically the same thing, which is, I didn't actually realize that when I first heard of Talk to the Entities. I was like, oh, that's cool, but I'm still afraid of ghosts. Wait. So my question for you is like, were you, because inherently in our society, we're like sort of taught to be scared of ghosts and paranormal activity. So were you
Yeah.
ever scared of ghosts? And like, how did that change when you heard of this modality or this sort of talk to the entity program?
Yeah, those are great questions. Actually, though, with regards to entities, by definition, you're an entity too. I'm an entity. We just happen to have bodies. Your business is an
Right.
entity. A book is an
Right.
entity. And so, a portrait could be an entity as well. So, but when I was little, I remember, being afraid of the boogeyman, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look,
Yeah.
I remember I always had to sleep next to my grandmother when she was alive. She was like my primary caretaker while my mom went to work. And then like when she passed away, then I like had to sleep with my mom because I remember always being aware of, I felt like energy, so to speak. And I remember like even at night, like you could almost sort of like see like these little like electrical grids in the atmosphere, but it wasn't something that felt like fun, light, and expansive, right? And so I was always really scared. And the only thing that I was ever taught was like, the kind of things you learn in church, right? And then
Right.
then when you start, maybe watching TV, then all the different things that are dramatized regarding ghosts and that whole world, right? Especially the music. When you add the music in it, then it makes it even
Yeah.
more scary, right?
Yeah.
So
I know.
but like, what if, so what happened? So fast forward, I never thought of myself as someone who, there are people who see ghosts, right? And so unfortunately for some of those people, they can't tell anybody, so they feel crazy. But then there's other people who actually make a living, right? Doing it. Some people hear them and some people actually see them with their own eyes. And, some of them are called psychic mediums, if you will. But what I've come to learn is that everybody has the ability to perceive, know, be, and receive the spirit world. You may not be able to see them or hear them with the senses per se, but you could have an awareness of them. And when you start to learn the tools that you're taught and talk to the entities, you start to develop that part of the perceiving, knowing, being, receiving portion. So I had to get over my point of view that that wasn't something that would work for me, that it's only for those select few people. Also, too, one of the biggest stigmas, though, too, is basically religion. And I've been able to travel all over the world, and people who are religious, no matter whether you're Arab or Christian, you know what I mean, or any other religion, it's like if it's something that's outside of your religion, nobody wants to know about it. Nobody wants to know about it. And even those people who kind of go outside of their religious upbringings, it's almost built into their DNA. Like they still don't want to hear about it, right? Because it's not something that's within the normal part of our waking lives.
Yeah, it's just a little bit beyond, and so some people are not comfortable, even if they're pushing the boundary with their religion or going outside a little bit. Like when you start talking about ghosts or entities or anything like that, it's like it's just a little bit farther. Though, like most people are not, or like a lot
Yeah,
of
they're
people
not
are not
willing to
willing.
know. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Or you have the trained preacher or pastor or rabbi or whatever the different titles are in the different religions, that they're the ones that are trained in that area. And again, even if it's something of the spirit world, it's usually something that's deemed as demonic or evil or
yeah.
bad. And so, and what if that wasn't true? What if they weren't all bad? What if they were people like you and I that are maybe even stuck? Maybe what if they are people like you and I that didn't want to go to the light? So they're kind of hanging around waiting for their loved ones. And so these are just sort of like interesting points of view that I started listening to, where even though I kind of had left my religion, so to speak, it was still hard for me to wrap my head around, and I had a lot of resistance to it.
So are all entities evil or demons, or or do you separate them, or are there some good entities as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, they're just like, what if they're just like us, right? You have people
Oh,
that are
okay.
good. You have people that are lost. You got people that are dumb, people that are smart, people who talk too much,
Right.
don't talk like are shy. And then you have, evil ones too. And then, yeah, there are demons. I do believe in demons, and,
Yeah.
the ones that we actually create. And then, ones that are actually brought here too. So a lot of it is created through judgment and separation.
Totally. And so with these new awarenesses and you being willing to explore this world a little bit, the spirit world, what has that contributed to your life? Just like
Oh my God.
briefly. Yeah, I know
What
that could be
happened?
a long
Like what
conversation.
happened? So,
Yeah.
again, I always thought that this was something for those people over there, right? And then this is not a conversation that you get to have, at a barbecue. You know what I mean?
No, no.
So, but for me, I could, because to me, it's like it does fit into my everyday norm now, because again, there are disembodied beings walking around our planet, and they
Yeah.
do influence the way our bodies feel, and they do influence the way our minds feel or think, right? And so one of the things that I've learned in the 8 years in Access is, one of the tools they teach you is to always ask, who does this belong to, for every thought, feeling, and emotion that you have, and even like a pain in your body. And being in the healing profession for over 20 years, it's like we're so used to treating pain, and and as a chiropractor, you want to try to help treat it in a way that helps facing the symptom anyway. And it's like,
Yeah.
what if the intensities in your body, or what if like some of the cuckoo cuckoo going on in your brain is actually an awareness of what's going on in a disembodied being? What if it was actually an awareness of our earth and the
Yeah.
struggles that our earth is going through? You know what I mean? And there's so much information out in the world about that. So again, that question of who does this belong to has been such an interesting thing for me. But it really wasn't until 5 years of me doing Access where I started to explore that on a much deeper level. And I started to realize that I actually had an awareness of entities around me, especially a lot of sad ones, a lot of them that maybe even had taken their own lives. And so, and it was interesting traveling back to New Jersey to facilitate a 3-day body class. I remember having that melancholic feeling that I used to have as a teenager. And I decided to use the entity tools, and I'm like, why am I sad? There's no reason for me to be sad. And then I just started actually talking to the natives that were there. Not
Okay.
like the white people who colonized the area, but like the natives. And that wasn't even
Yeah.
something that I remember learning about in school, like the basic stuff, but not like about the people, right? And I just started having a conversation. And after about 10 minutes of talking with them, that melancholy just left. It was gone.
Cool.
So then I was like, holy shit, like, what if that was just awareness as a teenager? So I mean, this is just, I'm trying making this sound simple, but I had a lot of resistance to it. Again, I fought it. I thought it was a lot of this was make believe, because everything else was
Yeah.
make believe for
Yeah,
me.
and you can't always, like you said, not everybody has the ability to see entities with their eyes. So you're using a lot of your
Yeah,
awareness and other senses. So if you're not willing to be open to that, then it can be a bit of a hard thing to swallow that people are talking with the native entities on this land and like getting rid of their melancholy. But it's like the thing with it's the same for bars for me. It's like you can't really explain that either, and it's kind of beyond the normal senses. So if people aren't really into that, then like you can't really convince them. But what you can do is show them what contribution it's been to your life, which I
yeah,
mean, just a simple thing like being aware of the entities that are like on the land and then acknowledging them often is enough to change those sensations that you might be feeling. So
yeah,
it sort of
yeah,
expands. I mean, in the Access Foundation class, you learn, and I think even in bars, you learn who does it belong to, which is an awesome tool. But with this conversation, you can really just expand that to beings that don't have bodies as well, and the earth, and like all these other entities that you might not think about when you first hear about that tool, because it's like, oh, who does it belong to? It could be my neighbor or something like that, but it could
Yeah.
also be, somebody who died in the house that I'm living in or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It also actually helps you to have more ease with the space that you live in. Yeah, because they
Right.
could be previous owners. Sometimes even with the original homeowners that actually built the house that are no
Yeah.
longer there. Not even like the previous homeowners, but like the originals, right? And so there's so many ways that you could use the tools that could just be, at the end of the day, they're just really designed to make your life easier. They're not designed to replace your religion or your philosophies on life. They're actually just designed to provide you with these pragmatic tools to make your life easier. So, yeah, so it's my life got easier when I started to incorporate the tools, and it is a muscle that you have to build. And sometimes you don't even know if it's working when you're using it, but then all of a sudden it's like, whatever heaviness that might be going on in your universe at that particular moment sort of just dissipates naturally. Like, oh my God. And then you just start connecting the dots that, oh, it was because of that tool I just used a minute ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. It's opened my eyes to the spirit world. The spirit world exists, and
Yep.
so these tools have helped me acknowledge that, because like you said, you can't see it. So that's not a conversation I've had with anybody, but when I explore these tools, it's like the spirit world and entities, like it's actually going on, and they're entities with us here right now.
Yeah.
Often there's more entities without bodies than there are with bodies. It's like we just haven't acknowledged it.
Yeah.
So it's helped me acknowledge that and not have this fear, and then also sort of normalize it in my life. If I'm aware of something, go through what you were just talking about, and then having a chat with somebody, or just simply acknowledging that an entity is there, is often enough to change it. So
Yeah. And a lot of times, and a lot of people have the point of view that when someone dies, all of a sudden they become more conscious than they were when they had their body. And what if that was actually a myth? So it's like with these tools, you actually have the ability to facilitate more consciousness in someone who's passed over or crossed over.
yeah.
And, and a lot of times there's so many points of view out there that exist. This is not about giving you more points of view. Okay, there's so many points of view. People like, oh, they get stuck in purgatory and then they got to work on their shit. And after they're done working on their shit, then they get to go to the light. Or some people are like, oh, they're going to hell. Whatever. Okay, and so maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're just stuck. And so sometimes having a simple conversation with them and giving them the tools actually releases them so they can go to the light. And that was something that came into my awareness long before I even started Access. And actually, the idea of that popped into my universe the day we buried my late wife, the children's mom. And I'll never forget, the pastor was like, she's rejoicing with the Lord. And I'm like, no, she's not. She's actually sad right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, because I could feel her. She's
Yeah.
sad, because, she made a choice to leave, but she did it from a particular state of mind that she was in that in this reality would be deemed as psychotic or, in an intense state of psychosis or whatever. And I'm like, she's not rejoicing with the Lord. She's not dancing around in heaven and all that. She's actually sad. She's having like an oh shit moment right now. All right. And you can't tell me that she's rejoicing with the Lord after she just watched her 10 and 8-year-old son bury her in the ground, So I was like, no. And then it wasn't until about 3 years after that, when I took the entities class, when I heard that for the first time, when they're like, just because the person died, it doesn't make them all of a sudden more conscious. It doesn't make them all their problems all of a sudden go away. They may not have the physical problems that the body had, right? But it doesn't mean that's all of our problems are energetic anyway. And those are imprinted in our beings. So it doesn't mean that they all of a sudden dissipate when you cross over. And so when I finally heard that and talked to the entities, it sort of matched the awareness I had the day we buried the kid's mom.
Totally. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that totally makes sense. And then that's why, you know, sometimes when the holidays come around, it's like, it's extra sad. But is it my sadness or her sadness?
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't have a body anymore, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so it just helped to give me an awareness around things I could not get any peace with anybody else's explanation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the information and the tools was something that came along. And again, in the beginning, when I first started listening to this stuff, I fought it. Literally. I had to hear it, like, I think it was my third Talk to the Entities beginners class before I was like, oh, like, because I couldn't receive it, man. I was so pissed. I was pissed at my guru. I was pissed at religion, the pastor, I was pissed at. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. Everybody's got all their friggin' points of view, man. Come on, there's got to be some information out there that can at least help me to gain some awareness of the things I'm aware of. But nobody, like I couldn't get any support for what I was aware of. I felt really alone.
Yeah.
Really alone. And so it's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, all those people that you just said, they all think their point of view is right, first of all, and then they try to fit what you're feeling and going through into the box that they know. And then you're describing, like, being aware that it doesn't fit in that box, and you're like, what's outside the box and what's something different? And they're like, this is the only box. And you're like, no, like there's something else.
And the beautiful thing about being able to travel around the world is everybody's got their fucking boxes, man.
Totally.
It's like, it's the same box, but just it's got a different covering.
Yeah.
You know?
Inside is the same thing.
If nothing exists outside of your box, then that person's either insane or they're going to go to hell for thinking that thing that's outside the box.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's a really interesting thing that I learned in the beginning class is that when somebody dies or commits suicide or anything like that, they get rid of their physical body, but as an entity, they still have the same stuff. Like if your late wife was sad when she passed away, she's probably still sad without a physical body, you know, and that's what you were aware of. And that's what people don't always think about. Those are conversations that are beyond the psychologist world that we are sort of aware of in Western medicine.
Yeah, because, you know, bipolar disorder is a chemical imbalance. You know, there's a glitch somewhere in the brain that's releasing a certain amount of chemicals that's putting that person in a state of psychosis or whatever state that they're in, or mania, or the depressive state, and God knows. But, you know, but nobody ever asks the question is, okay, well, what triggered it? What triggered the imbalance?
Yeah.
And what I've come to learn, you and I have come to learn and access, it's like when you have an influx of awareness, right? And if you have a lot of points of view about it and they don't match anything in this reality or anything you've learned, they'll make you go a little nuts.
Yeah, totally.
They'll trigger a lot of chemical imbalances. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's what these tools do. They help you to actually have ease with your awareness. And again, looking back, knowing what I know now, looking back to the things that she had gone through, she would talk about things that she was aware of, but they didn't fit this reality, right? They didn't fit the paradigm of the church. They didn't even fit the paradigm of when we had the guru. They didn't even fit the paradigm when we were doing metaphysics. Right. So she felt alone.
Yeah.
And insane.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she was aware of everybody else's insecurities, but she was thinking they were hers. So it's like having these tools to help somebody process their awareness. And I'm not saying it's all about ghosts, okay? We're not. This is just a piece. This is just a piece of like all the different tools you learn and access. But it's like, what if you could change the face of mental illness on the planet? What if you could change the cray-cray that goes on in your brain? What if you could change body stuff that's been going on for 25 years that you've had that you haven't been able to fix with these tools? it's like, why not explore it? At least, you know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah, be open to it and give it a chance. Yeah. And something that Shannon has always talked about, Shannon O'Hara, who founded Talk to the Entities. Entities, like you said, they're not any different than us with physical bodies. And so, like, when people pass on, like you said, they could be happy or sad, and they're usually happy or sad in the, without a physical body. And because a lot of people like think that entities or ghosts have like power over them, or they're more powerful or something like that. And Shannon's like, they're not. He's like, they just want to have a chat. Like, they're just lost like you and I. So just just talk to them.
Yeah, I know.
And like, for me, that made it so much more approachable and easy. Like, I didn't have to do it a certain way. I didn't have to say us like, there wasn't like this set of rules per se. Like, it was like, just have a chat. They're just people without bodies. Well, and I was like, whoa, what?
She like demystifies it and
totally
it makes it like, oh, gosh. And look, but let's also, she makes it almost like, it's like putting on your pants every day. Like, nobody thinks about it. You just do it. And it was like, oh my God. But also keep in mind though, there are some intense beings without bodies that can, try to, create havoc in your life. Right. So, but what's beautiful when that shows up is that with the tools, it creates the space for you to step up as a being as well. And you start to become more empowered. And if you're able to be more empowered with the spirit world, well, how's that going to translate in your regular everyday life? You won't take shit from anybody ever again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there's people with bodies that try to create shit in your life too. So it's like, are you going to be at the effect of this? Or are you going to be affecting it to create something different? Exactly. And so I think the more that you feel empowered in all of these areas, it creates like greater in your life. Exactly. And more happiness usually is a cool side effect of all of this.
Well, I found. Day, that's what it's all about. It's about to empower you. You know what you know, and to not be at the effect of like your gifts and your awareness and your psychic abilities.
Totally. So this beginning class, there's like an evening prereq class to the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think we have the intro class on, it's November 25th. So it's 2 days before the beginners class starts. And then we have the beginners class that starts the day after the American Thanksgiving. So perfect timing.
Cool. And then the beginning class, a couple days, I think it is. Are you going to be doing it online over a few days? Or
2-day class, but it will be online. So we'll be doing that over the course of, I believe, 7 days. It'll be like 90 minutes. 90 minutes each day. It's about an hour and a half. And so give it little doses online so people don't get overwhelmed. But it's a gift, true gift. And, it's like, if it sounds interesting, if you're someone who's been struggling with anything, it's like, what would adding these tools to your life create? And if it's something that sounds like, or feels expansive in your universe, jump in, come in and play. It may not make any logical sense. It may not fit any of your philosophies or religions. They're just tools. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Nothing more than just tools. So
awesome. Yeah, well, that's what I did. I just jumped in because Charlie's mom, Chelsea, was working with Shannon, and that was, this big part of Shannon's universe is talking to the entities. And so it kind of piqued my curiosity. And I was like, I have never been interested really in paranormal activity or ghosts, but I just jumped in, and now they have been these tools that you learn in the beginning class. They've been a real gift in my life. And I just sort of, when you're aware of something weird, it's, you can see if it's an entity, and then, I use them every day. It's really cool. And it's just like you said, it's another tool in your tool belt to, overcome this weird things that you have sensations about that are often not yours. But if we don't have these conversations, we just assume that everything is ours. Yeah. And then that doesn't lead to happiness at all.
No. And, and as a parent, what a gift it is to be able to, like you have a 5-year-old son, and like when he starts to become afraid at night and going to sleep, it's like you could actually have a conversation like, oh, what are you aware of? It's no big deal, right? And so teaching them the tools and empowering them. So as they grow, they'll be aware of these different energies and they won't feel like they're going crazy and they're all alone with it. So I remember my boys were doing Kung Fu martial arts several years ago. And there was a boy who he actually saw ghosts all the time, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And he was overwhelmed. He was overwhelmed. And this was before I started Access. And I'm like, I go, do you have anybody to talk to about it? You know, because I've always been open-minded to people who saw it. I just didn't think that was for me. I always just thought of myself as a body worker, you know, being a chiropractor and all that. So, and I would talk to him and I could tell he was kind of tormented by it. Like, you know, it was like he didn't want the gift and he had nowhere to go with it, you know? And it's like, I'd love to run into him now because I'd like to see where he is now. He's probably in his 20s. But it was like, I think about him often now with this work because it's like, had he had the tools then, man, he would have been able to make his life much easier, you know, much easier himself. And it's like, so there's a lot of people that actually have that gift and capacity. Like everybody has the ability to perceive, know, be, and receive, but some people can see them and they're tormented by it. It doesn't have to be so, you know? And so, I think about kids a lot with this sort of thing and how they're influenced by these unseen energies and how it actually influences their thought patterns.
Yeah. And if they have, like you said, if they have anybody to talk to about it, because if you keep that inside and you don't know, like as a child, especially like it's new, it's unknown, you don't know how to deal with it. And if you have nobody to talk to about it, that can sort of create the image of psychosis or, you know, other ailments just because they don't know what to do or who to talk to. And I think by us having these tools and sharing them with our kids, it actually creates, which I'm really excited about, creates a different future with a new generation that doesn't have a stigma, if you will, about the spirit world or entities or whatever. And it's just like part of life, just like using who does it belong to. It's just like, it's just a tool and it's part of life and it can change how you feel in a heartbeat.
Exactly. It is part of life. Just like going to the grocery store. What if it was that simple?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, anyway. So thanks for this conversation. And you know, what I love about this conversation, I'm thinking, man, we look like the two most normal dudes that would do something like this, right? And it's like, there we are having a conversation about something very weird.
I know. That's why I was excited to talk to you about this because we're not like you said, you were always open to people who are aware of ghosts, but you didn't think it was for you. And it's like when you think of people who are into paranormal activity, you either think of like conspiracy theorists or like kind of metaphysical weirdos or something else. It's like not really a chiropractor or a father or something like that, but it's like, so I think this is one step in just changing that, which I love.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Anthony.
Yeah. It's a great conversation. And
you too.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Anthony. Have a good one.
Bye.